It all began on a cold, rainy evening, the kind of night that feels heavy with unspoken words and broken promises. I never imagined that the people I called family would be the ones to turn their backs on me, to force me out of the house I grew up in. But that's exactly what happened. For years, I had lived under the same roof as my parents and siblings, believing that family meant unconditional love and support. But beneath the surface, tensions had been simmering, resentments, misunderstandings, and secrets that no one dared to confront. I was caught in the middle of it all, trying to keep the peace, but slowly, I became the scapegoat. The day they told me to leave was surreal. It wasn't a heated argument or a sudden outburst. It was cold, calculated, and final. "You're no longer welcome here," they said. No explanation, no chance to defend myself. Just a door slammed shut on the life I knew. I packed my bags with a numb heart and a mind racing with questions. How did it come to this? What had I done wrong? The house that once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a prison I had been locked out of. But as the days turned into weeks, something inside me shifted. I realized that this wasn't the end. It was a beginning. I wasn't going to let their rejection define me. Instead, I vowed to come back stronger, to reclaim my place, and to show them that I was worth more than they ever imagined. With nothing but determination and a plan, I set out on a journey that would change my life forever. I worked tirelessly, took risks, and made sacrifices. Slowly but surely, I built a future that no one could take away. And then, the moment came. I returned, not just to the house, but with a $1 million surprise that left my family speechless. It wasn't just about the money. It was about proving my worth, reclaiming my dignity, and rewriting the story they thought they controlled. This is my story of betrayal, resilience, and ultimate triumph. If you've ever been pushed down by those you love, know that you can rise again. Justice isn't always loud. It's the quiet strength that comes from within. After being forced out of the house, the reality of my situation hit me hard. I was suddenly homeless, in the emotional sense, even if I had a roof over my head elsewhere. The family I had trusted, the people I thought would always be there, had turned their backs on me. The pain was overwhelming, but beneath it all, a fire was igniting, a determination to prove my worth and reclaim what was taken from me. I moved into a small apartment, far from the comfort and familiarity of home. The silence was deafening, but it gave me space to think, to plan, and to rebuild. I knew that if I wanted to come back, I couldn't just walk through the door and expect forgiveness. I had to earn my place again, and on my own terms. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into every project, every opportunity, no matter how small. I took on extra shifts, learned new skills, and networked relentlessly. Slowly, my efforts began to pay off. I landed a job that not only paid well, but also gave me a sense of purpose and independence. But the journey wasn't easy. There were days when the loneliness and rejection felt unbearable. I questioned myself, wondering if I was fighting a losing battle. Yet every time doubt crept in, I reminded myself why I started. This wasn't just about money or a house. It was about respect, dignity, and proving that I was more than the sum of their judgments. As months passed, I saved diligently. Every dollar was a step closer to my goal. I researched investments, sought advice from mentors, and educated myself on financial growth. The dream of returning home with a surprise that would leave my family speechless became my driving force. Meanwhile, the family dynamics remained complicated. I heard through the grapevine that my absence was a topic of hushed conversations and awkward silences. Some relatives expressed sympathy, others judgment. But I stayed focused, knowing that their opinions didn't define me. One day, an opportunity came knocking, a chance to invest in a promising startup. It was risky, but I trusted my instincts and took the leap. The investment grew steadily, and within a year, it had multiplied beyond my expectations. With my finances secure, I began planning my return. But this time, it wasn't just about walking back into the house. It was about making a statement, a $1 million surprise that would symbolize my resilience and success. I hired a lawyer to ensure my rights were protected and to prepare for any legal challenges. I also reached out to a few close friends and allies within the family who had supported me quietly. Their encouragement bolstered my confidence. The day I returned was surreal. I walked through the front door, not as the person who had been cast out, but as someone who had fought back and won. The look on my family's faces was priceless: shock, disbelief, and maybe a hint of regret. But I didn't come back to gloat. I came back to reclaim my place, to heal old wounds, and to show that no matter how hard life knocks you down, you can rise stronger. This story is a testament to the power of perseverance, self-belief, and the courage to stand up for yourself, even when those closest to you turn away. Returning home with the $1 million surprise was more than just a financial victory. It was a turning point in my life and in my relationship with my family. The house that once felt like a place of rejection now became a symbol of my resilience and determination. But the journey to this moment was filled with challenges, emotional battles, and hard-earned lessons. When I first walked through the door, the atmosphere was thick with tension. My family's expressions ranged from shock to disbelief, and some even wore thinly veiled resentment. It was clear that my return disrupted the status quo, and not everyone was ready to accept the new reality. But I was prepared for this. I knew that reclaiming my place wouldn't be easy, and that rebuilding trust would take time. I decided to approach the situation with a mix of firmness and grace. I made it clear that I was back, not to seek revenge or stir up old conflicts, but to assert my right to be treated with respect and dignity. I set boundaries that had long been ignored, and I stood firm when those boundaries were tested. The $1 million surprise wasn't just about the money. It was a statement, a declaration that I was capable, independent, and deserving of a place in the family. I used part of the money to renovate the house, making it a space that reflected my personality and values. It was a fresh start, both physically and emotionally. Despite the initial resistance, some family members began to soften. They saw the changes in me, not just the financial success, but the confidence and self-respect I carried. Slowly, conversations that were once cold and distant became warmer and more genuine. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. I also took the opportunity to address the underlying issues that had led to my being forced out in the first place. Family therapy sessions were arranged, and while not everyone was willing to participate, those who did found value in confronting the past and working towards healing. Through this process, I learned that forgiveness and reconciliation are complex. They don't happen overnight, and they require effort from all parties involved. But I was committed to moving forward, not just for myself, but for the possibility of rebuilding family bonds. Outside the family, my life flourished. The confidence I gained from overcoming such adversity spilled into other areas: my career, friendships, and personal growth. I became an advocate for others facing similar betrayals, sharing my story to inspire and empower. Looking back, being forced out of the house was one of the hardest experiences of my life, but it also became the catalyst for my greatest transformation. I went from feeling powerless and rejected to standing tall with a $1 million surprise and a renewed sense of self. If you're watching this and facing rejection or betrayal, remember that your worth isn't defined by others. You have the strength to rise, to fight back, and to reclaim your life on your own terms. The days after my return were filled with a mix of emotions: relief, tension, hope, and uncertainty. Walking back into the house wasn't just a physical act. It was a reclaiming of my identity and dignity. But the family dynamics that had pushed me out didn't simply vanish overnight. At first, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken words. My family members avoided eye contact. Conversations were clipped, and the warmth that once filled the home was replaced by a cold distance. It was clear that my return disrupted the delicate balance they had maintained in my absence. I knew I had to tread carefully. I wanted to assert my place, but I also wanted to heal the fractures, not deepen them. I started by setting clear boundaries, letting them know what I would and wouldn't tolerate. It wasn't easy. Old patterns of control and resentment surfaced, and I had to stand firm. One of the biggest challenges was dealing with the silent judgment. Some relatives whispered behind my back, questioning my motives and the sudden change in my circumstances. But I refused to let their opinions shake me. I focused on the tangible progress I had made, the financial independence, the personal growth, and the emotional strength. I also sought to open lines of communication. I invited family members to talk openly about the past, the pain, and the misunderstandings. Not everyone was willing to participate, but those who did found the conversations cathartic. We began to confront the issues that had led to my being forced out, and slowly, some healing began. Therapy played a crucial role during this time. Family counseling sessions helped us navigate the complex emotions and rebuild trust. It was a slow process, filled with setbacks and breakthroughs, but it was progress nonetheless. Outside the family, my life flourished. I invested the $1 million wisely, starting a business that aligned with my passions. The financial freedom gave me confidence and the ability to live life on my own terms. I surrounded myself with supportive friends and mentors who encouraged my growth. I also became an advocate for others facing similar family betrayals. Sharing my story publicly, I connected with a community of survivors who found strength in each other's experiences. Together, we raised awareness about toxic family dynamics and the importance of self-advocacy. Looking back, being forced out of my home was one of the hardest experiences of my life. But it was also the catalyst for my greatest transformation. I emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to live authentically and with purpose. If you're watching this and facing rejection or betrayal, know that healing is possible. You have the strength to rise, reclaim your life, and build a future filled with hope and joy. The journey toward rebuilding my life after being forced out of my family home was anything but straightforward. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to grow stronger and more self-aware. I quickly learned that reclaiming my place wasn't just about returning physically. It was about healing emotionally and mentally. One of the first hurdles I faced was dealing with the lingering feelings of rejection and betrayal. It was difficult to shake the sense of abandonment, especially when family members acted as if nothing had happened or, worse, blamed me for the fallout. I had to remind myself constantly that their actions were a reflection of their own issues, not my worth. To cope, I immersed myself in therapy and self-reflection. I learned to identify toxic patterns and to set healthy boundaries, not just with my family, but in all areas of my life. This was a crucial step in protecting my emotional well-being and ensuring that I wouldn't be vulnerable to similar betrayals in the future. Financial independence played a huge role in my healing. The $1 million surprise wasn't just a windfall. It was a symbol of my resilience and determination. I invested wisely, started my own business, and created a life that reflected my values and ambitions. This newfound freedom gave me confidence and a sense of control I had never experienced before. Despite the progress, family relationships remained complicated. Some relatives reached out with apologies and attempts at reconciliation, while others remained distant or hostile. I learned to accept that not everyone would be part of my life moving forward, and that was okay. My focus shifted to nurturing relationships that were healthy and supportive. I also became passionate about helping others who face similar struggles. Sharing my story publicly, I connected with countless individuals who had experienced family betrayal and rejection. Their stories inspired me, and together, we formed a community of support and empowerment. Through advocacy work, I partnered with organizations that provide resources for those dealing with toxic family dynamics and emotional abuse. This work gave me a sense of purpose beyond my personal journey and allowed me to contribute to a larger movement of healing and justice. Looking back, being forced out of my home was a painful but necessary catalyst for transformation. It pushed me to discover my inner strength, set boundaries, and build a life that truly reflected who I am. If you're watching this and feeling lost or betrayed, remember that your story isn't over. You have the power to rise, reclaim your worth, and create a future filled with hope and possibility. As I continued to rebuild my life, I realized that the scars left by my family's betrayal would always be a part of me, but they no longer defined who I was. The experience had transformed me from someone who felt powerless and rejected into a person who was empowered and in control of her own destiny. One of the most important lessons I learned was the value of self-love and self-respect. For years, I had sought validation from my family, hoping they would recognize my worth. When they pushed me away, it forced me to look inward and find that validation within myself. This shift was liberating and essential for my healing. I also discovered the importance of setting boundaries, not just with family, but in all relationships. Boundaries became my shield against toxicity and a way to protect my emotional well-being. I learned to say no without guilt and to prioritize my needs without apology. The journey wasn't without setbacks. There were moments when old wounds reopened, when loneliness crept in, and when I questioned if the fight was worth it. But each time, I reminded myself of how far I had come and the strength I had gained. Financially, I continued to grow my investments and business ventures. The independence I achieved allowed me to live life on my own terms, free from the control and manipulation I had experienced before. This freedom was priceless. I also made it a point to give back. Whether through mentoring others, volunteering, or sharing my story, I wanted to help those who felt trapped by their circumstances. Empowerment, I realized, was not just personal. It was communal. Rebuilding my life also meant redefining what family meant to me. I chose to surround myself with people who uplifted and supported me, creating a chosen family that reflected the love and respect I deserved. Looking back, being forced out of my home was one of the hardest experiences of my life, but it was also the catalyst for my greatest growth. I emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. If you're watching this and facing betrayal or rejection, know that healing is possible. You have the strength to rise, reclaim your life, and build a future filled with hope and joy. By the time I reached this point in my journey, I had come to understand that true healing is a process, one that requires patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. The betrayal by my family was a wound that would never fully disappear, but I had learned to carry it with grace rather than letting it weigh me down. One of the most profound realizations was that my worth was never tied to their acceptance or approval. For so long, I had sought validation from those who were unwilling or unable to give it. Breaking free from that need was liberating. I began to celebrate my achievements, no matter how small, and to recognize my own strength. I also embraced the power of vulnerability. Sharing my story publicly was daunting, but it connected me with others who had faced similar pain. Their support and shared experiences created a community where healing was possible. Together, we found strength in our stories and hope in our resilience. Financial independence continued to be a cornerstone of my new life. The $1 million surprise was more than just money. It was a symbol of my ability to overcome adversity and create my own path. I invested wisely, built a business, and used my resources to support causes close to my heart. Family relationships remained complex. Some members reached out with genuine apologies and efforts to rebuild trust, while others remained distant. I learned to accept that not all relationships are meant to be restored, and that's okay. My focus was on nurturing connections that brought positivity and growth. I also dedicated time to personal growth, reading, learning new skills, and exploring passions that had been sidelined. This holistic approach to healing helped me build a life that was fulfilling and authentic. Looking back, being forced out, of my home was a painful chapter, but it was also the catalyst for my greatest transformation. I emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined to live life on my own terms. If you're watching this and feeling lost or betrayed, know that your story isn't over. You have the power to rise, reclaim your worth, and create a future filled with hope and possibility. As I moved forward, I realized that the journey of healing and rebuilding was ongoing. It wasn't a destination, but a continuous process of growth, self-discovery, and resilience. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to strengthen my sense of self and redefine what family truly meant to me. One of the most important lessons I learned was the power of forgiveness, not necessarily for those who hurt me, but for my own peace of mind. Holding on to anger and resentment only kept me tied to the past. Forgiving didn't mean forgetting or excusing the betrayal. It meant freeing myself from the burden of bitterness. I also embraced the importance of self-care. After years of emotional turmoil, I prioritized my mental and physical well-being. I developed routines that nurtured my body and mind. Exercise, meditation, creative outlets, and spending time with supportive friends. These practices became pillars of my resilience. Financial independence remained a key part of my empowerment. The $1 million surprise had given me a foundation, but I knew that true security came from ongoing effort and smart decisions. I continued to educate myself about investments, entrepreneurship, and personal finance, ensuring that I could sustain and grow my success. Community became another vital aspect of my healing. I connected with support groups, advocacy organizations, and online forums where people shared stories of family betrayal and recovery. These connections reminded me that I was not alone, and that collective strength could fuel individual healing. I also found purpose in helping others. Whether through mentoring, volunteering, or simply listening, I dedicated myself to supporting those navigating similar struggles. Sharing my story became a way to inspire hope and encourage others to stand up for themselves. Family relationships continued to evolve. Some members reached out with genuine remorse and a desire to rebuild trust. Others remained distant, and I learned to accept that not all relationships are meant to be restored. My focus shifted to cultivating healthy, supportive connections that honored my boundaries and values. Reflecting on my journey, I saw how being forced out of my home, while devastating, had been a catalyst for profound transformation. I had moved from a place of pain and rejection to one of strength, independence, and hope. If you're watching this and facing betrayal or hardship, remember that healing is possible. You have the power to rise, reclaim your life, and create a future filled with love and fulfillment. As I approached the final stages of my journey, I reflected on how much I had grown, not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually. The experience of being forced out of my home and then returning with a $1 million surprise was more than a story of revenge or success. It was a testament to human resilience and the power of self-belief. One of the most profound changes was how I viewed myself. I no longer saw myself as a victim of circumstance, but as a survivor and a warrior. The pain I endured became a source of strength, fueling my determination to live authentically and unapologetically. I also became more compassionate, not just toward others, but toward myself. I forgave my past mistakes and accepted that healing is a journey with ups and downs. This self-compassion allowed me to move forward without being weighed down by guilt or regret. My relationships with family continued to be a work in progress. Some bridges were rebuilt, while others remained broken. I learned to accept that not everyone would be part of my life, and that was a form of self-care. Protecting my peace became a priority. Financially, I continued to thrive. The $1 million surprise was just the beginning. I diversified my investments, expanded my business ventures, and created multiple streams of income. This financial freedom gave me the ability to live life on my own terms and support causes I cared about. I also dedicated time to giving back, whether through mentoring, philanthropy, or advocacy. I wanted to use my experience to help others facing similar struggles. Sharing my story publicly created a ripple effect, inspiring many to stand up for themselves and seek justice. Looking back, the journey from being forced out to returning with a $1 million surprise was transformative. It taught me that no matter how deep the betrayal or how hard the fall, you can rise again, stronger, wiser, and more empowered. If you're watching this and feeling lost or betrayed, know that your story isn't over. You have the strength to reclaim your life and build a future filled with hope and possibility. The final chapter of my story is not just about the 1 million surprise or the house I reclaimed. It's about the transformation that took place within me. Being forced out of my family home was one of the most painful experiences of my life, but it also became the catalyst for my greatest growth and empowerment. When I first left, I felt lost, abandoned, and broken. The people I trusted most had turned their backs on me, and the future seemed uncertain. But through that darkness, I found a light, a determination to rise above the pain and reclaim my life on my own terms. Returning home with the $1 million surprise was a moment of triumph, but it was also a beginning. The house, once a symbol of rejection, became a place of healing and new memories. I renovated it with care, creating a sanctuary that reflected my values and dreams. Every corner told a story of survival, resilience, and hope. Family relationships remained complex. Some members embraced the changes and sought reconciliation, while others remained distant. I learned to accept that not all wounds heal completely, and that's okay. Forgiveness became a personal choice, a way to free myself from bitterness, rather than to forget the past. Sharing my story publicly connected me with a community of survivors and fighters. Together, we created a space of support, understanding, and empowerment. I became an advocate for those silenced by family conflict, using my voice to inspire change and healing. Financial independence gave me freedom, but emotional freedom was the true victory. I learned to love myself fiercely, to set boundaries without guilt, and to live authentically. The $1 million surprise was a symbol, but the real treasure was the strength I found within. If you're watching this and feel lost, betrayed, or broken, know that your story isn't over. You have the power to rise, reclaim your worth, and build a life filled with love and respect. Healing is possible, and your future is yours to create. Thank you for listening to my story. If it inspired you, please subscribe for more real-life tales of betrayal, revenge, and justice. Together, we can find strength in shared experiences and rise above the pain. Remember, the greatest revenge is living well, and that's exactly what I intend to do.